Welcome to Urban Fantasy PH. We are creatives who live in an urban society and give readers wish fulfillment by way of our stories, which is fantasy but reflective of reality. Here, we get to talk to fellow creatives like writers, authors, artists, comic book creators, filmmakers, you name it. We create and share our art here in the Philippines as well as abroad. My name is CJ Edmonds, I'm your host, and here is today's episode. All right, good morning and hello. Welcome back to another episode of Urban Fantasy PH. It is another Wednesday, and that's why we are here for all of you. My name is CJ Edmonds, and this is the second episode of our second season, and I'm glad that you are able to join us today. And I'm also glad that our guest is able to devote a slice of his time to drop by this morning. Now, he is a science journalist and is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Filipino-centric science news website that's called Flip Science. Okay, and because of his work, he's also received numerous awards for his work, including the Asian Scientist Merit Prize, the University of the Philippines Science Journalism Award, and the Outstanding Science and Technology Media Practitioner Award from the Department of Science and Technology. Now, he's also a speaker and lecturer and conducts workshops on science communication and creative writing for Filipino students and educators alike. We are so lucky to have him today on the podcast. Say hello and good morning to Mikael Francisco. Good morning, Mikael.
Good morning, CJ. Good morning to everyone who's tuning in. Thank you for devoting time to listen to this episode because I think maraming pagkukwentuhan na maganda
Oh,
today.
yeah. I have no doubt about that. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. When I first heard of your book from a common friend, France, hello, France, I immediately got curious because science is not a topic that everybody can just gravitate towards, much less talk about at length. Were you always interested in science as a kid?
Yes, and I didn't really have a lot of friends as a result. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's uh, let's rewind a little bit. When I
Okay.
was a kid, I was really into science, and actually, that love for science started because I was so into superheroes. I
Ah.
always say that my origin story as a science communicator, science journalist, science communicator, started with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm a kid of the late '80s, early '90s. So I'm sure that many of in our generation would be able to relate. Yeah, yeah, we had some really good entertainment back then. But you would notice that if you took a look at these, a lot of them were grounded in science gone wrong,
Mm-hmm.
creative science concepts, and so I was like pretty much any other kid my age, I was into the Ninja Turtles because they were bright, they were colorful, they were cool. They were cool
Yeah.
for kid standards. They still are, even for adults like us. But one of the things that I always found compelling about the Ninja Turtles was their origin. As any fan would tell you, four baby turtles fell down a sewer, got bathed in red mutagen ooze, and became the thing that they last came into contact with. And in their case, they were picked up by a human or a rat, depending on which version of the story you follow, and they gained humanoid forms as a result of their exposure to the ooze. And as a kid, I was like, wait, is that really even possible? Like, is there a substance out there that when you touch it, you turn into something else? Your
Mm-hmm.
body changes, and these are things that, of course, as adults, we'd probably scoff and say, that's silly, that's fiction. But as children, these are the triggers that really ignite the flames of curiosity,
Yeah.
and that compelling story, about that compelling part of the origin of the turtles also was something that I also experienced when I got familiar, when I met Spider-Man. It was my favorite, probably my favorite all-time favorite character. Peter Parker bitten by, again, a radioactive, because you have to remember that during these times, when these in the 60s and 70s, we didn't really have a very, very clear idea of what radiation would really do to a body. So we
Yeah.
had some ideas, but research was still, it was still in its, we were still learning more about it. And this gave the creators, the writers and artists of that era a little more leeway in terms of imagination to think about what would happen if a spider were bombarded with I think gamma ray, something along that wavelength, radiation, and then bit a human, what would
Mm-hmm.
happen? And
Yeah.
in Spider-Man's case, he didn't die horribly of cancer or lose his limbs. He gained spider powers, the proportionate strength, speed, and agility of a spider. And so over the years, this fascination with these fantasy concepts helped me develop my interest in science as well. Unfortunately, that love for science that I had at an early age, it also came with quite a bit of bullying. I was bullied as a small child.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have many friends because I'm oversimplifying, but part of the reason was because I would rather spend time in the library or in my own creative world than playing with other people. And I guess the kids my age at the time didn't really understand that, and they made fun of me. They made fun of the fact that I had high grades. The
Yeah,
typical
I
story.
know.
So
Yeah, back in the day when you were called a nerd or a geek, it
yeah,
was kind of derogatory, but now
it,
it's cool to be a nerd. It's cool to be a geek. So parang, yes, we are inheriting the world as we speak.
supremacy, geek
Bumabawi tayo.
supremacy.
Arr!
Kakabawi na, oo. Pero back in the day, that wasn't the case, as you just said. And so, there was a conscious decision as I was growing up. I want to be cooler. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be perceived as cooler by my peers. So I sort of like gravitated away from science. I made sure I wasn't too geeky.
Okay.
In college, I tried to be more, I don't know, friendly. I tried to hang out more, socialize more. But as they say, first love never dies. So when I graduated and I had the opportunity to write about science, you see, I didn't take the path of a scientist, which I probably would have if things turned out differently. In a what if scenario or in an elseworld scenario, I would have been a scientist, I think.
That's right. That's right. And I
But
could probably call you Ryan Choi.
oh my god, yeah. I have that white dwarf star belt, and I could do some
Oh.
amazing things. Yeah, eat your heart out, Ant Man. But point is, yes, I had the opportunity to write about science and scientists after graduation. I was just to give some perspective, and I know this is going on a bit long, but to really grasp
Oh, okay.
my origin story. I was stuck in a job that I wouldn't say was bad, but it I there was no soul in it, man. I
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was just clocking in, clocking out, doing what I could to earn my salary. I didn't feel alive, and so
Yeah.
when I had the opportunity to write news stories for GMA News Online, under my mentor and now friend TJ Di Macali, who is also
Which
himself
common
a
friend?
prolific,
Yes,
yes,
he
a
is.
common friend and a prolific science fiction writer. Um, I took the
I should guest
opportunity.
him next.
Yeah, yeah, you should. Yeah. Yeah, hi TJ. I hope you're watching this.
Hello.
And then yeah, that went on. That started in 2013, and then 2017. My then girlfriend, now wife, and I had the idea that we should establish a science news website for Filipinos by Filipinos, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where flipscience.ph was born. And as a natural evolution of our science communication efforts, because the point has always been to not, I don't like the term dumbing down science. I don't think we're dumbing down science. We're just helping more people appreciate it. So in our continuing mission to help people appreciate science here in the Philippines, we've come out with a podcast, the Ask Theory podcast, which features Filipino scientists every week, and we've also published books. These books are compilations of our articles about Filipino scientists. That's one book. It's called Historia Scientifico. And the other book,
There
aha,
you
yeah,
are.
TJ
I'm
is
holding it up.
happy.
Holding it up. Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do. I
and
do.
yeah,
And
and the other book,
mhm.
yeah, sorry, the other book is about science trivia. It's not just about the Filipinos. It's not just about Filipino science trivia. It's called Science Scramble, as you can see.
Which I have
And
as well.
yeah, and the difference between those two books is that Historia Scientifica is a compilation of stories written by me and other writers for flipscience.ph. Science
Mhm.
Scramble is something that I wrote myself from start to finish. So those are my two books. So basically, that's my science communication journey in a very big nutshell.
Right.
Even in
We will get
action.
into the books in depth, of course. But I'm glad that you mentioned, superheroes and Spider-Man and all that. I guess as kids we all had to, start somewhere with regards to being attracted to grown-up topics. I mean, science is not something that you would just present to a kid and here's EMC2. Sige, ano yan? So, yan, di ba? Nothing like that. It will also it will be packaged in the form of entertainment. It will always be packaged in the form of fiction so that it will be palatable for kids. Um, and on the subject of memory, you mentioned that you liked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Spider Man. So I assume that as a kid, you've always liked to read, comic books as well. And probably these are just some of the kind of books that you read back in the day. Is that true?
Yes, one of my earliest and fondest childhood memories was when my dad, he's no longer with us anymore, but my dad bought
Mm.
me a comic book of the Ninja Turtles, and it came with a I don't know if the kids these days would know this, cassette tape. It was
Okay.
one of those listen
Nice.
along kinds of comic books. So it was an actual comic book. It wasn't your kiddie storybook. It was an actual Archie comic book because Archie Comics was publishing Ninja Turtle comic books back then. But it also came with a cassette tape that you could listen along as you read. So it kind of helps you. It helps early readers, sort of like with
Right, right.
pronouncing things and stuff.
I
So yeah,
remember those tapes like that. Disney had them at one
yeah,
time,
yeah.
so you can listen to them. You can listen to them while reading. One of the things that I treasure to this day, and I remembered looking everywhere for it, is an LP of The Rescuers. We all love
Oh,
that movie, Disney The Rescuers. So I didn't get to watch the film back in the day when it was shown because I think it was just limited screen time or stuff like that. But I enjoyed the storyline because there was a narrator narrating the whole movie, and at the same time, there were recordings of audio from the film itself. I still have that long playing album to this day. That's one of my prized possessions, and I will I will not part with that ever. But
so
yeah,
cool.
that's that kind of introduces reading to people who normally would not pick up a book. I remember back in the day that I would always borrow books from my several books from my cousin who just lived behind us back then, and he would read Tom Clancy. He would read Eric Van Lustbader, and these are just different kinds of books. And although I have to admit I never really finished those books, but the feel and the comfort of having a book in my hand gave me comfort. It was just like it was my security blanket, as Linus will have his own.
Yeah.
And so wherever I go, people would ask me, tapos mo na ba yan? I keep saying no, I have not. And so, that prompted one of my batchmates to give me a Hardy Boys book
Oh,
then for my birthday. And then that sort of started me on this reading binge. But and it's glad that as earlier on science is something that you felt drawn to, you felt akin to. So I take it that science was probably also your first foray into writing, or even back then you also attempted to write a little bit of fiction.
good question. When I was a kid, I used to write little comic books of my own. I would write and draw comic books. So some comic books would feature the Power Rangers, specifically the Blue Ranger. See,
Okay.
I really like Billy because he was the smart guy, and because
Okay.
my favorite color is blue. So I would draw little comics about him using his brains to defeat like a monster solo. So I think I made like three of them. Of course, when I became a teenager, I threw them away. I kind of regret that, but yeah. The point is, I used to do that. Little stories, little comic strips, comic books. I would staple them. I would fold them and staple them, and they would like read like a little comic book. Um, but professional writing, in terms of professional writing, I really started writing comic book reviews and film reviews for
Okay.
some local pop culture sites.
All right. Of course, I take it then that you are either a Star Wars fan or probably a Trekkie, if not even both.
More of a Star Wars fan.
Okay, yes, tama ang shirt ko. I mean, there's always been a debate of which fandoms are better. Honestly, it can get toxic if you let it. And if you
Yeah,
dig a little bit further about what people have to say about it, there will always be room for everyone to criticize one fandom of the other and say this is better because that. And warp speed is not real
yeah.
in Star Trek, but it sounds more plausible in the Star Wars universe. Geek elitism is real, people. So I was wondering, have you encountered people who are like that, and how do you handle people who are?
Yeah. Um, Funny thing you mentioned geek elitism. I wrote an article. I used to have my own website where I would just put my little ramblings and stuff. I wrote an article about why geek elitism has to die.
Mm-hmm.
And actually a lot of my friends in my network shared it. I wouldn't say it went viral, but the shares reached
I
a
think I
hundred,
yeah
which
I remember stumbling upon that
ah
in on
right.
my feed. So yes, that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah.
title that title stood out. So okay, I didn't realize that it was written by you. So thank you for writing that.
Yeah, thank you. But what really started that was when, because this was a time when comic book movies were starting to get popular, and everyone was like, well, Tony Stark didn't make Ultron. Ultron was actually designed by Hank Pym. And if you read the comics, you would know that, etc., etc. And we started like putting this premium on people who read the comics before watching the films, or watching
Hmm.
the TV shows and all that. And well, that's one. That's one. And I'll go into some of the reasons why I think geek elitism has to die. But another and more interesting example for me is this. My favorite, I mentioned that Spider-Man is my favorite character, but
Yeah.
my favorite version of Spider-Man is Spider-Man 2099. He is like my main guy. Like Peter's a very
Okay.
close second, but Miguel is my top dude. Um, and one thing that you would know about Miguel, if you're familiar with his comic book adventures, is that in his earliest adventures, he was described as someone wearing a black suit. In fact, he was described as a horrible man in black. This was in the pages of the book. But due to comic book coloring techniques, his suit is often rendered blue or metallic
Hmm.
blue
Yeah.
because it's supposed to reflect light and stuff. It's made of unstable molecule fiber, the same fabric that the Fantastic Four's costumes are made of, and it reflects light in a way that it looks like, or as co-creator Rick Leonardi put it in a podcast interview, comic book black. So comic book black is really black with blue highlights. The same reason why Spider-Man suit, regular 616 Spider-Man is red and blue now. It used to be red and black with blue highlights. If you look at Steve Ditko's art in the 60s. So point is, uh, about 95% of all merchandise, of all toys, action figures, statues made by Marvel for Miguel has
Hmm.
him in a blue costume. So that sort of creates the impression that his costume is blue. Even if you look at the video games, it's blue. And I know this as a fan. I customize action figures. That's one of my hobbies. So I post them online and people appreciate it. But every once in a while, I would get
Wait, do,
someone
do
who
you
would
have one
comment.
right there on your desk that you can hold up
Yes,
and?
actually, thank you, thank you. This is one of my desk buddies. Yeah, there you go.
Ah, there you
So
are.
yeah, I made this guy. So
Ah.
yeah, so he has a posable cape and all that. Oh, look at that! Look at the nerd holding his toy. I'm kidding, but this is one of my hobbies. It helps me
I'm not
distress.
one to judge because I got Funkos right behind me.
Oh yeah, I have. Oh, cool, cool. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Constantine.
Awesome. Constantine.
He's
Yeah.
there in front of me, reminding me to do what I need to do.
Yeah, he'll judge you and puff some like cigarette smoke in your face.
Yeah.
So inevitably, I get someone explaining to me, like, did you know that in the comics, Miguel O'Hara's costume is actually black? And I'm like, well, that's that you're basing your assumption on the fact that I painted him blue, which is a stylistic choice, and you
Hmm.
assume that I don't know it's black, and somehow that makes my creation less valid or less acceptable. So what I normally do is I just like, okay, like, because over the years, I've realized that arguing with these people is a waste of time. I mean, pag pinatulan mo, talo ka
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you're just two geeks fighting about something that
Talo
don't
ka na,
really
pagod ka pa.
pagod ka pa, di ba? Exactly. And you're fighting over something that shouldn't, like, there are more important problems in the world than to debate whether his suit is black or blue. And you don't really win anything if you argue with these people. You just waste time. Time
Yeah.
that you could spend writing, time that you could spend drawing,
Hmm.
fulfilling your creative desires. Instead, you're wasting this on some internet rando who you won't remember a week from now.
Agreed.
I just want to emphasize, there is no medal for being the biggest geek. There is no award for being the most knowledgeable person about Iron Man. These are not things we should strive for. These are not aspirational goals. Our escapist entertainment should remain escapist entertainment, and we should strive to make ourselves better, not by knowing every single armor that Iron Man has ever worn, but by being good people to each other. These are the lessons we should learn from our comic book heroes. Not that Miguel O'Hara's suit is actually black.
Exactly. Point taken. And I hope for those who are listening and watching this, take that to heart. Or if not, you probably also know some people who are like
I
that.
like
Or perhaps they themselves don't know that they are. And it is, you're going to be treading on eggshells if you try and broach that topic and tell them, you know what? I may not know everything about the character that you profess so much love and knowledge for, but I'm happy where I am.
Yes, that's the important thing, diba? You don't have to know everything about the Flash to say that you're a fan of the Flash or Batman
Or
or
Batman,
gusto mo lang.
yes, exactly. I mean, it's equally the same thing for Marvel and DC. With the Marvel movies having given us so much, and the DCEU still trailing behind. Ouch. But
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, let's see how this new management fares.
I'm still
Uh,
waiting for my Nightwing movie. My
there you
goodness.
go. Yeah, but if you're up to date with what's going on in the DC comic universe, Tom with another Tom comes to my mind, but he's doing something with Nightwing.
Is it Tom Taylor?
Yes, Tom Taylor. There you go, Tom Taylor. He's doing something with Nightwing, and I just see this in the feed. I'm not up to date with my reading yet, but somehow, Nightwing is reshaping the DC comic universe in some way. So for all you Nightwing fans, then yes, you are going to be
Represent.
rewarded for that. But yeah, let's get back into your books, and we start with the first one, which is the one I held up earlier on, entitled Historiang Scientifico. It is a showcase of Filipino scientific excellence. It is edited by you and features collaborators and contributors. So I was wondering, although you touched upon this, but is there a specific person, or if not, instance that inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, this podcast has been full of great questions, but that's one of the best questions you've asked, because this actually started uh when I realized that, when we think of scientists, we don't really think of Filipino scientists. We think of Marie Curie, we think of Albert Einstein, we think of Tesla, we think of Edison, we think of
That's
Newton.
right. That's
But
right. That's right.
ask a random person on the street to name a Filipino scientist. You'll be lucky if they say Fidel Mundo or Ricardo Lantican or many of these other little known, not very recognized Filipino scientists. And I don't we don't have any delusions of reshaping Philippine society and all that, but we wanted to start planting the seeds of getting people to know our own scientists, because they're brilliant and they've accomplished a lot of amazing things that we just don't hear about because they're not so mainstream.
Hmm.
So that's what inspired the creation of the book. We wanted to take our feature articles online, bring them to an audience that maybe doesn't have access to our website or doesn't have internet access in because, as we know, here in the Philippines, hindi ganoong kaganda. Actually, sabihin ko na pangit. Pangit ang internet sa Pilipinas.
Yeah, we
Hindi
kind
ko
of
na
like cushion it a
double.
bit. Yeah, internet is
So
bad.
I wanted to be able to get this book to libraries, public schools, private, and we're doing that. We're getting it to different schools in the Philippines. We're giving copies to to orphanages, donation drives, etc. We want our goal with Historian Scientific is to get it to as many readers as possible so that they will grow up knowing who Fidel Mundo is, who Ricardo Lantican is. And when someone asks them, may kilala ka bang Filipino scientist? Meron silang masasagot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love it also at the back that you wrote, and I'm reading this as what you wrote at the back. It's time to shine the spotlight on Pinoy scientists of the past, the present, and the future. I am so glad that you're doing this as a service to fellow scientists out there, or perhaps even contemplating a career in one. But as you said, the sad truth, if not the hard truth, is that Filipino scientists do not get as much credit and attention that they deserve. I mean, what do you think is that? Is it probably because science for the masses is too highbrow, or it's too learned a topic to be excited and be interested about, or it's just that we have our education system to blame?
As with every other societal ill in the Philippines, this is a multifaceted problem that has its roots in systemic injustices and inequalities. But
Hmm.
maybe to address some of the simplest points, I think, or the most common points, unang-una, yeah, the education system really needs rethinking, reshaping. If you remember a few years back, there were even talks of changing the curriculum so that science would not be a subject that kids have to take early on because science is
Mm.
too difficult or something. Which I
Oh
oh god,
gosh.
I would die on this hill. It is not. It is something I disagree with vehemently. Like you introduce, you plant the seeds of science love in these kids early on. You engage their curiosity because these kids are curious. You
Exactly.
should not judge them based on maybe what you think science is, your perception is. And that's the second thing, perception. Tama ka. Science is perceived by some as a highbrow subject, pang matalino lang, connecting to the greater problem of smart shaming in the Philippines. Ang daming problema ng Pilipinas, but that's that's another thing, yung smart shaming, 'di ba? And
Yeah.
for some it's just a subject. Kailangan ko lang maipasa yung science para lang maka-graduate na ako or something. But that,
Yeah, for me to move on to the next level or whatever. But yeah.
exactly. Oh, and the thing is, science isn't just a subject. Science is part of everyday life. From the technology that makes this podcast possible, to the food we eat, to the
To the phone we
navigate to
use.
the phones we use, yes, and the navigation systems that prevent us from getting lost. These are just, I don't know, surface level applications of science. We're not even getting into yung actual everyday lives, how science is helping farmers develop better crops, food production, improving food production, medical advances. Science is life. Life is science. And we should stop thinking of science as something just for the smart people. Unang-una, because science is for everyone, not just for, and not hindi nga smart people, not just for people we have judged as smart by
Hmm.
societal standards. But the second thing is, hindi lang naman sila yung matalino, kahit sino naman. Kahit sino naman kaya maging matalino. Lagi kong sinasabi, when I give lectures on science communication or trainings for aspiring science communicators, I always say that your goal in writing about science is not to make yourself look smarter. Hindi para pagmukhaing matalino ka. It's to make your audience a little smarter. Make them feel
Yeah.
a little smarter, help them understand. And as long as you have that goal in mind, you won't go wrong. It's always to contribute. It's not to boost yourself. It's not to
Right.
prop
Right.
yourself up.
I mean, if you're coming from the space of sharing, you know that there's no ego involved, and that
Yes.
my goal is to get this information across from how I learned it to you, who's just starting to know, all about it. And I guess as I don't have kids, but in a way, grown-ups have also something to do with this, because if you present something to a child as mahirap, difficult, and no, that's not for you, what message are you sending across to that child? This is one instance where I was at a bookstore, and it really pained me to listen to that. This mother was chastising her child, and saying that you have no right to read a book, because I didn't get the full extent of it. I'm sure monetary concerns were one of it, but the one thing that stood out in that scolding was that it's not for you. pang matalino yan. It's for smart people, and you don't have time for that. It's like, why are you at this time, in age of your child, are you limiting them this early? What
Yeah.
message are you sending across as a parent? And as a child, it's like, okay, I'm not supposed to read books because
Yeah.
I don't have
Double
time.
eh.
I'm not supposed to read books because I'm not smart, or I'm not supposed to read books because we're not wealthy. We don't have it in the budget. So that's, I was so traumatized by just listening to that, and I had to leave the bookstore because it was just too much negativity and too much toxicity in that simple conversation. So I hope that there are parents out there, listening, or who happen to tune into this podcast. Please don't do that to your kids. Please don't tell your kids that books are difficult to come by and that it's a waste of time and that they're better watching TV or playing on their iPad. No,
Oh no.
please.
Oh,
No. Most of us here who are now doing this podcast or doing what it is that we do creatively, we grew up with no cell phones, with no smartphones. We grew up with no video games. We grew up with just books and interacting with fellow kids. And look how we turned out today. And look how some of members of the newer generation are turning out. So the difference alone should tell you that there's something that needs to be corrected.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Um God, I was rambling.
It was a good one. It had to be said. It had to be said.
Yeah, I was like, okay, who do I throw this mug to? But anyway, also reading your book, I saw that you took the time to profile individuals who are experts in their field of choice. There's Dr. Reginald Bernardo, the first homegrown Filipino gravitational physicist. I didn't even know that there was one, a gravitational physicist. There's also Dr. Jose Velasco. He's a rice researcher and coconut champion. You also profiled Dr. Abelardo Aguilar, the Filipino who
Yeah.
discovered erythromycin. We've heard this growing up, but now we know that it's a Filipino who discovered that. There's also a young physics whiz by the name of Hilary Andales, and there are also three other scientists who came to home to make a name for themselves and share their knowledge here. So there's so many in the book, and for sure there are many more out there who've done so much for our country, all in the name of science. How was that vetting procedure like? I mean, how did you come about selecting who to feature?
Ah. So first we worked with a list. We have what we call national scientists. I'm sure some of our listeners are familiar, viewers are familiar with this.
Mm-hmm.
The national scientists are recognized by the National Academy of Science and Technology. It's a government mandated thing. And these national scientists have had. I'm oversimplifying it. They've made significant contributions and they passed the screening process, and that's why they receive this recognition as national scientists. So we
Mm-hmm.
started working with that list. We're actually not done profiling all of them because there are like 40 plus of them.
Yes. Yay for
Uh,
book three.
yeah, yes. And it takes time to research and interview them. And some of these, and many of them are no longer with us. So
Oh,
getting access to interviewing, that's also another challenge, and getting access to their published materials. And also people who made the news. For example, Dr. Reginald Bernardo is I got to meet him through some mutual physicist friends.
nice.
They mentioned his story to me because at the time when I interviewed him, because I wrote that particular part of the book, he was just finishing his studies, and he was on track to becoming the first gravitational physicist. And the term gravitational physicist is in its word, it's itself a mouthful. Like,
It
what the
is.
hell is a gravitational physicist? Do
Yeah,
you
I was
study
gonna ask
gravity?
you that. Like, ano trabaho niyan?
Right? Di ba? So hindi ko na spoil, but in the book we went that we had him explain in simple terms what he does, and why yun yung importante dyan eh. Parang ito yun eh. Uh, Whenever I write about these, I always say na hindi ako yung scientist.
Mm-hmm.
I am just a member of the public like everyone else. And I feel that gives me an advantage because I know exactly what we don't know. I know what questions we need to know, we need to ask. So when I talk to these people, ano ba yung gusto kong malaman? So, and that's what I ask them. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were able to I was able to get that information from Dr. Reginald. And he talked a little bit about his own work, his hobbies, we were both Spider-Man fans. Yan yung isang naalala ko sa kanya.
That helped
So,
for sure. That helped break the
yeah.
ice.
And I used some references to Peter Parker in that article. So he really liked it. Sabi niya nga, ano, he shared that article on social media and he said it was the best feature that he read about him. And his mentor also shared it and said that it was the best feature that they've ever read about, a local physicist. So parang natuwa naman ako dun. So my work is paying off. And a lot of people were able to read it. I saw the stats on our website. Maraming nagbasa. Maraming na
Mhm.
curious about the story of this gravitational physicist. So, we started with a list, yung national scientists. We work with our network because I know a lot of people who are either scientists or friends with scientists. And, I read the news. People na nababalita, people I don't know personally, when I feel like they have an interesting story to tell, I try to get their contact info and I reach out to them directly. So I take that step. Parang, hi, I'm Mikael from Flip Science at PH. I would love to feature your story, ganyan. So that's pretty much it. All of this fueled by the desire to talk to scientists who are, Filipino and
Mhm.
not some American or European scientists in the news na because sila lang yung naririnig natin, sila lang yung akala nating may alam.
True. 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 I agree. I agree. Along with that kind of selection, perhaps there might also be have been a separate procedure to narrow down the contributors because, as you said, book one is more of it's a showcase, and so you edited this. And although there are articles that you've written, you also have some contributors in the book. So how were you able also to make the selection about the collaborators or contributors?
Yeah, that was not easy kasi since I'm actually the sole editor of flipscience.ph. So every single article on that website, ako yung nag-edit. And
Okay.
as much as I want to put everything there, I really had to choose a balance between sino yung may pinakakakaibang kwento na
Mm-hmm.
scientist, sino yung pinaka-interesting yung because I think all of our articles are good. Yabang no? All of our articles are good
Yes,
because dumaan
own it.
sila sa akin. And because the writers are good. The writers of Flip Science are good. But, may mga iba talaga na parang, okay, if someone who doesn't know about these scientists were to pick up this book, these are the articles that I want them to see first. Parang gateway drug into reading more, maybe on our website or elsewhere. But these are the stories that I want to introduce them to. So yun, a mix of, sabi mo nga, na nilagay ko nga din sa likod ng book, past, present, and future. Yung future, of course, is covered by si Dr. Reginald, si Hillary,
Hmm.
yung
The
mga
younger
on the path.
generation, yes,
Yeah, yung younger
exactly.
generation. And then yung present, yung mga scientists na umuwi
Hmm.
to the Balik Scientist program to contribute. And then yung past, yung national science. So I made sure that there was a good balance with a bit of bias towards the past. Kasi para sa akin yun yung foundation eh. Kailangan yung history ng science medyo strong.
Hmm.
So I would say the book is about like maybe 50% from the past, 30% from the present, and 20% looking ahead. Yun.
Right. And at the start of each and every article, there is, of course, a drawing, an illustration of the scientist or the doctor in question, and these are based on their actual photographs, and you just had artists sketch them, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Because I also feel
they're drawn very very well. Bilib
ah,
na ako kung pati ito ikaw rin, pati yung
hindi,
artist
hindi.
ikaw.
That was yeah, we credited the artist then there. I think his name is on the cover. I made sure na ano or in the acknowledgement sa likod. But
Yeah, yeah, sa likod. Yes,
yeah,
Daryl Van Abaygar.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
He's an excellent artist. He's not based in Luzon. I think he's from the Visayas. So talagang we also tried to make it more inclusive. Talagang everyone can be part of this. So yes, we talked to Daryl and he was on board with the mission. Kasi parang we gotta put faces to these names. That's my thinking. When we think
Yeah.
of Albert Einstein, crazy hair,
Yeah.
old dude,
Right, right.
uh, mustache, ganyan. I want someday na yung Filipino scientists, yung ganong level of recognition din na parang may visual na, ito yung itsura ni Fidel Mundo. Ito yung
Mm.
itsura ni ni Gregorio Zara, ganyan.
Right, right.
Ma-visualize natin. So, for me, it was important to have those illustrations there.
What made you decide to illustrate them instead of using their actual photographs?
Because I'm medyo mababaw. Kasi I'm a fan of comic books. Ako
Okay,
parang
that explains
gusto
it.
ko
I don't.
talagang
I the
yung parang cartoony but realistic style. Sobrang
yes,
benta sa akin.
yes.
And I want to share that love with other
Hmm.
people. Parang pag nakita lang, hindi lang picture. Parang, oh ano, ang cool nito ah. Drawing.
Yeah,
Pero
and that
kalakas
also
niya.
gives you a chance to work with other people outside the
Yes.
industry, and I guess it harks back to your comic book, your love for comic books, and so yeah, that explains a lot of it as well. Looking at the second book this time around, this is you I because it's a little bit thicker, and I also see that it's written and illustrated by you. You've taken on a bigger role in book two,
Yeah.
if not a bigger responsibility. The second book is called Science Scramble. Over 200 amazing facts and incredible stories. So the difference here that I'm seeing just by the title alone is that you've kind of like moved the concentration from people this time into amazing facts and the stories behind the people. So what made you decide to go that route and not make book two more of people and their accomplishments?
Ah. Well, these two books, well, actually, Historia was in the works even before the pandemic. But these two
Hmm.
books sort of like came out during the pandemic, and we were kind of trying to, hindi naman distraction, but we were thinking, what could we contribute not just to building yung knowledge about scientists and science in the Philippines, but also giving people something else to, something else to appreciate in this difficult time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the thinking was, if we make part two or the second book another like compilation of stories about scientists, it might be a little monotonous. It might be a little hindi naman boring. I never think science is boring, but it might like hit the same notes, and we're not we're only engaging part of the whole science topic,
Yeah.
the whole topic of science. But I wanted to like tap into the fascination that people have about the wonders of life, of science, and people love trivia. That's one thing I've learned from running Flip Science for more than 5 years. People love learning new things. People, as long as you present them with facts that you can back with evidence, people
Yeah.
really, they love to hear about the Wolverine frog, for example, or the man who had who was hiccuping straight until his death, ganyan. So yung mga fantastic things that contribute to knowledge but also engage yung parang, oy, ang cool nun ah. Oy, that's pretty amazing. That's that the wow factor. No, and I wanted to create something that really tapped into that. And at the same time, nandun din yung kagustuhan ko mag-illustrate ulit.
Yeah.
So parang,
They're there again. There, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Si
I drew the
Froggy.
cover, I drew the pictures that accompanied each article, most of the articles, and yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the thought
It's
process
it's
behind
it's
it.
it's a thicker book, that's for sure. And it's also published by a publisher that is this space here?
No, it's not.
Yukioto. It's not.
Okioto. It's a publishing company. They kind of like take care of the hard stuff for you. It's a unique arrangement in the sense that they don't. It's not like publishing here in the Philippines where it's a bit more meticulous because of tax laws and legislation and all that. This is literally like we'll agree to publish this, pero kayo the writer of the book or writers of the book, just give us your content, naka-layout na, give us the illustrations. We won't mess around with the content. We won't even give you any editorial guidelines. Just this is the size of the book. Make sure it fits here. Ayan. And then we'll take care of the
Okay.
publishing, pay for everything, and then we'll ship it to you. That's it.
Okay.
Pretty
Wow.
straightforward.
Yeah. That makes it easy for you. Unless you're the kind of person that who really wants to be on hands with everything, down to
Yeah.
formatting and to layouting and all that. I know some people roll that way, but if you
Yeah.
can outsource,
Yes,
if you can
exactly.
outsource and have someone else who is good at what they're doing do it for you, and at the same time deliver the same results that are to your liking, then I think that's also that's pretty much okay. Yeah, yeah. Um, with two books, I know that it's just like when you pop a particular brand of potato chips, you can't just have one.
Yeah,
There will
that's not.
there for sure will be more books to follow. So I was wondering, what are you currently working on, or what's keeping you busy?
Yeah. There's a third book. We're working on a third book. Under the Flip Science banner again. Again, it's about science, but we're not gonna talk about what it is just yet. This book has, there have been delays in production of the book because life got in the way. But
Mm-hmm.
it's on track, and hopefully, if not this year, by next year we'll have book number three. But I'm also working on some creative projects of my own,
Mm-hmm.
namely a children's storybook. It's in
Nice.
the art it's in the art stages now. So tapos na yung story, it's just the art now. We're finishing it up, and two comic books. Um
Wow. Wow.
I'm not gonna get into detail about what these comic books are kasi nahihiya akong mag-promote tapos biglang hindi ko pala matuloy because I let life get
Or
in the
I'll
way
ask it of
again.
you offline.
Yes, but
Para
I
walang
can
accountability.
walang accountability, but I can give two hints. I can give hints about the genre. One is going to be a heartwarming limited series,
Hmm.
and two is going to be a mystery ongoing.
Nice. All right, you got me at mystery and heartwarming as well. Two different things, but nonetheless, I'm sure engaging to read about. For those who would like to know more about you and what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah. You can find me on Facebook, Mikael Angelo Francisco. You can follow our page, Flip Science PH. You can send me an email if you have any questions. Send me an email at Mikael Writes, MikaelWrites at
Hmm.
gmail.com.
All right.
That's it.
And they can probably, let's say, if they know of a scientist that they would want to have featured, mali mo,
Oh, absolutely.
kamag-anak nila or whatever. I didn't know that I had a great great uncle who did this. They can probably email that to you as well, and correspond with you in the hopes of getting their own family member featured.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I just found out last week that one of actually our mutual friend, di ko napapangalanan ko sino para magulat siya. One of our
Okay.
mutual friends has a sibling who is a scientist,
Wow.
or someone pursuing the science track in a field that we have not yet tackled on the Ask Theory podcast. So I will send that person an email. Malalaman na lang ng friend natin na, na in-email ko yung kapatid niya. Magugulat siya, "Oh, nasa Ask Theory ka pala." So, yeah. But if you guys have any recommendations about Filipino scientists who you think have an interesting story to tell and are willing, kasi
Mhm.
importante rin yun, and are willing to talk about what they do, please send those recommendations my way.
Yeah. The two websites that they can look for is Flip Science, and the other one is, you said, is Ask Theory, right?
Yeah, it's
Ask Theory is more of, or what differentiates that website from the other?
Yeah. Flipscience.ph is the website. As Theory is the podcast,
Okay.
which you can find on various platforms, like Anchor,
All right.
Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts.
In short, kapatid.
Kapatid. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Before we wrap this up, I was running just some creative questions. Any writing rituals that you do before you sit down to write?
Oh God, I'm gonna sound like a walking stereotype, but I always start with a cup of coffee. But you can't
Ah,
see
okay.
because of the wall. I chose this background because it reminds you of Detective Conan. That iconic poster of him pointing, the one that you see in pretty much every movie, every
That's
Detective
right.
Conan
That's
movie,
right.
with him pointing at the screen. Yeah, and this. But yeah, I start with a cup of coffee. I'm not one of those people who acts like a jerk without coffee, but really, my thought process works a lot better when I start my day with coffee.
Exactly.
Um,
Do you
and
take your coffee black or
black, just black.
black? All right.
For
I have
health
not.
reasons
Hmm.
and because for a sentimental reason. My father used to take his coffee black. I never really understood it when he was still alive. I would
Mm-hmm.
make coffee for him, and he would always like black. And I was like, "What cream and sugar, milk and sugar is the way to go." But you know, over time, I tried it. I actually developed a liking to black, and it's better for health because I'm not taking in more sugar than I should. And ever since he passed, I parang bilang ko na lang sa kamay ko yung times na nagkape ako na hindi black because it always reminds me of him.
Oh,
So,
that's nice. I know I
yeah,
probably should have asked this, earlier on in the episode, but was your father also into science?
he was. I don't think he'd mind telling. Sorry, Papa. He was a big science buff when he was a kid. He was particularly into chemistry and
Hmm.
mechanics. He
Wow.
was into tanks and warplanes and all that. Alam ko nung bata siya, nagdo-drawing pa siya ng mga illustrations of yung mga blueprint ng tanks. He was good. And when he was in
Nice.
college, he got into chemical engineering because he was into that stuff. But he discovered the joys of partying and social life and all that and belonging. So
Okay.
he kind of he in his own words he said he didn't focus so much on his studies and kind of fell off track and eventually decided to go into business instead. I'm not saying that business is an inferior alternative to science. It's you can't compare apples to oranges, but
But
he
you can make business, in science as well, or out of science. So
yes,
okay lang yan.
but maybe he yeah, but he kind of realized that following the business track allowed him to do what he wanted in his heart to do
Mm-hmm.
versus devoting all of that time to science, which he still loved. And I could see that when I was growing up, na he would always support me in my science pursuits. Yun nga, buying me science books. I remember we went to the floating bookstore, MV Dulos. I don't know if some of your viewers or maybe you've been there. There's this. I don't think they do that anymore. I'm not sure. Pero when I was young, there was this ship, MV Dulos, that would go to the Philippines once a year.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right,
Sa
right, right.
Manila.
I missed out on that. I missed out on
Yeah.
that.
And they would have books at crazy prices. Yung mga books na hindi lang crazy prices pero sobrang hindi mo makita dito. So pag pupunta kami doon, I think we went there twice or yeah, I think twice. I would be able to get some really good science books. We didn't I didn't grow up with a lot of money. That was another thing. I grew up poor. There's no better way to say it. I grew up poor. But my father always made sure na when it came to enriching yung curiosity, the brain, hindi niya ako tinitipid.
Mm-hmm.
So, pag may opportunities to get these books at good prices or to get educational materials for free, he would help me. He would go out of his way for me. And if you notice dun sa books, nandun yung pangalan niya sa dedication. Those books were published after he
Yes.
passed. So, siguro biggest regret ko in life was he didn't live long enough to see what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be doing that for the rest of my life, and I'll be dedicating all of that
Well,
time.
I'm sure he's looking on you and saying, cheering you on with that. And he's waiting as well for book 3 and 4 and 5.
I gotta finish it.
You will, you will. Yeah, same thing for me. I'm also into creative writing, and moving forward, I did present my dad with the first draft of a fantasy book. I get I It's on hard. Wait, hold on.
Oh yeah, I see
It's
that.
here.
And
It's
where can I buy it?
Oh, not yet.
Oh,
It's one of my
there's
shelved. It's one of my shelved books,
ah,
and which I talked about on the and I'm promoting a fellow kapatid, the shelved books podcast with Kate Evangelista, Angie Sandro, and Christy Berman. Yeah, I was one of their guests. Well, actually, the first guest, and I love that
yeah.
podcast to death. And this is it. This blue thing right here.
Oh, cool.
So para siyang ano, it's like a college thesis that you compile and you hardbound. So
Yeah.
you can hear that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ang
And
kapal,
I
grabe.
yeah, and I have, and what do you call this? It was printed on paper that is akin to parchment like
Oh,
paper. Yeah, so
oh wow.
hinanap ko yan. And then colored printer pa. Then at the start of the chapter, wait, where's that? There you go. At the start of the chapter, I
Oh,
had to look for
cool.
these icons, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing that as well in the finished product. So I don't know when I'm gonna get back to finishing that, but eventually I will. And I got sidetracked, and and wrote other stuff.
Yeah. Struggle natin
Writing,
yan.
yeah,
Talagang,
urban fantasy, know that. But I will get back to that because that's my goal. One of my goals. So a shelved book does not become a shelved book forever. So you can
forever.
always go back to something that you've put on the wayside and introduce it again. Last two questions: do you play music or do you light candles when you write?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Yeah. I when I actually write the scripts, I don't. But
Hmm.
when I'm thinking of ideas, yeah, I have. Alam mo yung sabi niya, my wife says calls it coffee shop music. I have these parang jazz
Yeah,
background. So yung live stream sa YouTube ganyan or for the younger generation, alam nila si Lo-Fi Girl yan, chill beats and all that. I would have that in the background as I'm thinking of ideas and writing down and sketching.
mhm.
Candles, no. Takot ako na takot ako na sa excitement ko matabi ko tapos biglang,
Matabi ko.
sunog, wala na. But yeah, music, sometimes food. Although I don't like getting my hands dirty. Yun yung thing about me. I don't like getting my fingers dirty with when I'm typing or writing, ganyan.
Yeah, it's
As
so hard to
I
eat
imagine,
Cheetos and then you have to type, di ba?
exactly, yeah. And favorite ko pa naman Cheetos. So parang very unhealthy. I only
Yeah,
have
I
like
know.
Cheetos siguro once a year now because I'm really limiting my junk food consumption. But I've
Good
learned to
on
eat with
you.
chopsticks.
Oh, okay.
I've learned. I've
Para
tried
konti
to
lang
learn.
para konti lang talaga. Okay, I haven't kicked the Cheetos habit yet. That's
Ah,
probably something I need to do. In fact, a bag is waiting for me downstairs. But
so
I know.
doing it.
Preferred writing time, day or night?
Night. More of a night
Ah,
owl.
okay. Night owl, yeah. Para walang istorbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tsaka,
Uh,
ewan ko, there's something so, ang weird lang eh, there's something so inspiring about pag tumingin ka sa bintana mo and you see stars, or sometimes pag tumingin ka sa bintana mo and you see no stars,
hmm.
sometimes it just kicks something in and you just start writing. It's weird.
Ah,
Something about the pitch blackness.
okay. At least that's inspiration for you. For some people, and like me, they get ideas when they take a shower.
Ah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I,
Oh, that's
yeah.
also a
So
thing.
I don't know what is it. Is it about because water is emotions and water is also akin to ideas, and the flow of water will just stimulate something in the body. I don't know, but I've spoken to a lot of people, and they say that they've had ideas, in the shower. So we have not had to compare our water bill yet. So let's not do that. I hope not. I hope not. But Mikael, thank you so much for dropping by today and sharing with us what you've done for yourself, what you've done for the scientists of this country, and what you continue to do for everyone out there who feels that science is not something that should be shunned, that science should be something that is incorporated into our lives because we do live with science, whether we are aware of it, from the laptop we use to the phones that we use. To the Wi-Fi that we use, so that we get to communicate with other people and share ideas. All of it also, is bound by science. And we would love to create and share this, create awareness and share the book with everyone. And actually, I would like to give a copy of this book to one of our listeners or readers, and I'll talk to you later
Ah,
on how to do that. And the details will be posted on the Facebook page of Urban Fantasy PH, and of course on the YouTube channel. And we'll let you know how you guys can get a copy of the book. And for those who would want to order and buy the book, where can they get it?
oh, yeah. First, thank you for having me on the show. This is a wonderful platform because it's one thing to get to know these creative worlds, to get to
Hmm.
know these whether you're into fiction or nonfiction, to get to know these stories, but also another thing entirely to see what it is like to write them. So thank you
Yeah.
for this platform. That's fun, and I really enjoyed my time here. To people who want to get Historia Scientifico or Science Scramble or both can get it through the Facebook page Flip Science PH. You can order. Just send me a message, or you can order via Shopee. But I really prefer that you order just directly from us because I'm gonna be honest, Shopee takes a cut
Oh yeah, it
from
does.
the book. And also, as I'm sure, people who order from Shopee have experienced over the past month, You order something from Shopee, if it's through certain couriers, it doesn't get to you. It gets returned to the sender, or it takes 4 weeks to reach you, because
Yeah.
apparently they've been having problems with the shipping process right now, and they still have problems. So I would really recommend, if you want to order the books, if you want to learn more about our Filipino scientists, just message us at Flip Science, at the Flip Science Facebook page.
All right, and that's from one indie author to another. Yes, buy direct. Okay, that's direct. To us, and also you get it to you in the soonest possible time. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, the waiting time is very much lessened. So, Mikael, well, again, thank you so much for gracing the episode today. That is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today on Urban Fantasy PH. Till the next episode, I urge all of you to keep creating, and everyone else, we will keep reading. Stay safe, stay creative, and namaste. That was another episode of Urban Fantasy PH. Join us next time as we feature another creative soul who wants their art to be seen, heard, and shared. If you have your own work to share, just email us at urbanfantasyph@gmail.com. Through the next episode, this is independent author, singer-songwriter, radio personality, voice actor, and fellow creative, CJ Edmonds, reminding you to always listen to your heart, create with your mind, and share with your soul. Goodbye, everybody. Namaste. Blessed be.